Who is piloting the UAPs or UFOs constantly seen in our skies? Where are they from? Why are they here? How long have they been here? What is their mission on planet Earth? Do they come in peace or do they have more sinister motives? Join your host, Mad Mark, as he uncovers the answers to these questions and many more of the mysteries that have puzzled mankind for centuries on Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. And now, here's Mad Mark. Today's episode: who built all of the pyramids and other advanced structures found in South America? And what is the truth behind the face on the Sphinx? And lastly, what is up with all the misinformation regarding the Anunnaki on social media these days? Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. I'm Mad Mark, and today we continue our studies of Zecharia Sitchin's third book, The Wars of Gods and Men, published by Avon Books in 1985. Okay. This episode is going to be slightly different than normal. I've spent the last few days in the hospital with a health issue. I'm not going to go into the reason for it today, but suffice it to say that I'm still here and everything is fine. But the loss of time being laid up shortened the time I had to write this episode. So I'll be rehashing some points that I have made on earlier shows, and also setting up some events that we will be discussing in depth on upcoming episodes. I'm sure you'll find it exciting and entertaining. Mr. Sitchin is about to take a deep dive into the events that led up to the Anunnaki mass exodus from planet Earth, from being visible deities to ruling from the shadows. You're not going to want to miss a single episode for the next several weeks, so buckle up and let's get into it. Marduk, son of Enki, is the Anunnaki currently ruling Earth, also known as Amun-Ra. What if the final word of every prayer, the universal seal of faith spoken by billions, is not what you think it is? What if that single two-syllable word, Amen, is not a humble plea for peace, but a powerful ancient act of worship to a God you were never meant to know? Prepare yourself. The truth we are about to unveil challenges the very foundation of history and faith. For when we say Amen, we are in fact paying homage to a shadowy Anunnaki ruler, a being known to the Egyptians as Amun-Ra and to the Sumerians and Babylonians by his true name of Marduk. Millennia ago, just prior to the events that led to the mass exodus of most of the Anunnaki from our planet Earth, this powerful entity issued a decree that he would be the one true God, that humanity would no longer worship any other Anunnaki gods but him. And he demanded that all humans, when speaking to the divine, must honor him. They were to end their prayers by speaking his name, Amen. This being, Marduk, was no benevolent spirit. He was the chief deity of Babylon, an Anunnaki ancient alien who has covertly governed and owned planet Earth for thousands of years, and his reign continues to this day. His ambition was absolute. Around 4,000 years ago, it was Marduk who unleashed the Great Pyramid Wars across Africa and the Middle East. The conflict was so devastating, the advanced weaponry so terrifying, that it scorched the earth, incinerating plant life and leaving behind the vast deserts that we see today. His goal? To erase all rivals and to be worshipped as the one singular God of all humankind. In the Anunnaki pantheon was a prince named Enki, wisest son of the Anunnaki king Anu, and Enki had a son, Marduk. When Marduk finally seized power on Earth, his decree echoed across the ages. All prayers would be directed to him. All devotion would end with his name, Amen. But his rule was not one of peace. It was a reign of terror, slavery, and genocide, all in the name of his one God religion. It was Amun-Ra who commanded Moses and Joshua to slaughter entire cities, men, women, and children who dared to worship other Anunnaki deities. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, offers a chilling glimpse of his morality. If a man finds an unbetrothed virgin and assaults her, he is to pay her father 50 shekels of silver and then must marry her, because he has violated her. He can never divorce her. Is this the decree of a loving universal creator, or the law of a possessive patriarchal alien warlord? He was obsessed with being the paramount deity. He commanded the pharaoh Akhenaten to enforce monotheism, to abandon the old gods, his brothers, his father, his uncles and cousins, other Anunnaki who had previously ruled Earth for thousands of years, and to worship only him, the sun disk god Amun-Ra. His influence is permanently etched into our holy books. When you read the words, "I am a jealous God, and you shall have no other gods before me," you are hearing the direct, masquerading voice of Marduk. Sumerian texts suggest he used an advanced holographic communicator to speak to Moses, a device that the man mistook for a burning bush. This alien god, posing as the supreme being, then directed Moses to lead his people on a bloody crusade against all who worshipped his rivals. The Bible, in this light, is not a story of faith, but a record of celestial confrontations between alien dynasties with humanity trapped as cannon fodder in their divine wars. Marduk's own family, including his father Enki and his brother Thoth, were horrified by his aggression. Thoth, who had peacefully governed ancient Kemet Egypt for 16,000 years, was ordered by his father Enki to abandon the pyramid conflicts. He was to take his followers and establish a new civilization in the lands we now know as Mesoamerica, the lands of the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, where gold was more easily obtainable and where he would no longer have to battle with Marduk. Speaking of Thoth and Marduk, you have undoubtedly heard archaeologists hypothesize that the Sphinx used to have a lion's head, but it was never a lion's head. It was always a god's face, an Anunnaki's face, Thoth's face. The Sphinx was dedicated to him on order of his father Enki because he was the god of Kemet Egypt at that time. The ancient texts tell us this truth, that it was aligned to the constellation Leo because it was Thoth's time to rule Kemet Egypt. And then, as we discussed in the last episode, Marduk Amun-Ra returned to Kemet Egypt and began challenging Thoth for the throne. Thoth eventually left and went to Mesoamerica, and that was when Marduk had the face recarved to the face of his son. So it is now Thoth's nephew's face that we see on the Sphinx, and that is why the face on the Sphinx is no longer proportional to the size of the body. And the legacy of Marduk's bloodline is not just ancient history. It is believed that Amun-Ra's DNA was woven into the lineages of the Egyptian pharaohs, a royal genealogy that persists today, hidden in the genetic markers of modern humans. His current whereabouts are uncertain, but his influence is ever present. A dark lord, a shadow emperor, pulling the strings of secret cabals, global elitists, and shadow governments who still worship him, working to keep humanity in a state of spiritual and intellectual lockdown. We are now moving from the age of Pisces, his age, of unchallenged dominion, into the age of Aquarius, when a new Anunnaki ruler will emerge. It will be a time of awakening, a time for our souls to remember their power and return to a higher state of consciousness. Like Neo in the Matrix, we are beginning to see the code behind our reality. The breadcrumbs have been laid throughout history, in our myths, our scriptures, and our very DNA. I ask you not to believe, but to question. Question everything. And when you do, you will inevitably reach the same conclusions, see the same connections, as the greatest mystery of all time is finally unveiled. Don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. Seek out the truth for yourselves. Read the ancient Sumerian texts and/or the books of Zecharia Sitchin, and do not hesitate. This truth is far too important to wait even one more day. In his book, The Wars of Gods and Men, which we are currently discussing, Zecharia Sitchin describes a cataclysmic event, an event that we will be covering in detail over the next few episodes of this show. An event so large that it forever changed the landscape of the Middle East. An event so frightening that it led to a mass exodus of nearly all of the Anunnaki from planet Earth, a nuclear-like destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and a fallout zone over the Sinai Peninsula, a region we have identified as a former Anunnaki spaceport. He ties these truths to archaeological findings like the sudden radioactive layer discovered in the region and the biblical description of a burning wind that left many cities uninhabitable. Following this catastrophic event, most of the Anunnaki departed Earth. Some returned to Nibiru, their home planet. Others may have gone underground or into the oceans, but critically, they never said they were leaving forever. In his book, The End of Days, Sitchin explores ancient prophecies from the Sumerians to the Egyptians, Hebrews and Mayans that speak of upheaval followed by the return of the gods. He ties these cycles into the orbit of Nibiru, which he claims re-enters the solar system every 3,600 years. Sitchin estimates Nibiru's last passing at around 556 BCE, linking it to pivotal historical events such as the rise of the Persian Empire, the Babylonian exile, and the visions of Ezekiel, who famously described crafts and radiant beings descending from above. This idea of a return of the gods is not limited to Mesopotamia. Quetzalcoatl was said to return at the end of a great age in the Mayan calendar. Zoroastrianism speaks of Shao-Shiant, a messianic figure from the stars. The Book of Revelation foretells cosmic signs, judgment, and the return of divine beings. These aren't isolated beliefs. Sitchin argues they are global echoes of the same story, the expectation that the sky gods will come back. Could modern UAPs be a precursor? Sitchin theorizes that the Watchers, beings who observe from afar, may be the Anunnaki's envoys, here to monitor humanity as we near another critical phase in our planetary evolution. Recent reports show UAPs surveilling nuclear sites, military bases, and sensitive installations. Could these be probes, scouts, or automated drones laying the groundwork for something bigger? As Sitchin writes, the return of the gods is not a matter of if, but when. But here's the challenge. Will we be ready? Or will we be conquered, not by force, but by our own blindness? The surge in UAP sightings, the shift in governmental transparency, and the ancient warnings from sacred texts may all converge on one truth: not a new beginning, but the continuation of something ancient returning again. Okay, when we left off on episode 15, Marduk's aggression in Kemet, Egypt, was shifting into high gear. His trickery had led to the death of Dumuzi, whose widow, Inanna Ishtar, the warrior princess, was livid. She wanted revenge. Now, working with fragments found in the collections of Mesopotamian texts being displayed in several museums throughout the world, scholars have been able to piece together the next events that unfolded. Hey gang, Mad Mark here to let you know that I now have new t-shirts available for my show, Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth. You can find these cool new shirts by searching Who Are the Aliens shirts on Amazon or by clicking the link on my website at madmarktv.com. They are available in a variety of sizes and colors with delivery through Amazon, a name you know and trust. That's the all-new Who Are the Aliens t-shirts, just like the one you see me wearing right here. Get yours now. Afraid for his life after the death of Dumuzi, Marduk attempted to seek shelter and refuge inside the Great Pyramid. Why exactly? The texts don't tell us. But being as how he was one of the few gods who had not only been inside the pyramid, but who was also present during its construction, there is little doubt that he knew his way around its many tunnels and passageways. So, Inanna Ishtar, equipped with an array of deadly weapons and clad in her familiar half-naked clothing, approached the great structure and called out to Marduk, "My grandfather Enlil has permitted me to enter inside the mountain. Into the heart of the mountain I shall penetrate. Inside the mountain my victory I shall establish." Getting no response from Amun-Ra Marduk, she began her attack on the pyramid. But no sooner had she started when the ruler of Nibiru, Anu himself, spoke up. He warned her that Marduk had weapons with him that were equally as deadly as her own, and that their outburst is terrible. They will prevent you from entering. Anu then suggests that putting Marduk on trial might be a better way to seek justice for his crimes, and after a bit of convincing, Inanna finally agrees. The next bit of information that we are able to decipher is that the gods in attendance all surround the pyramid, and one of them is chosen to speak to Marduk. The fragment containing this god's speech has been lost, but the next thing we read is that despite the anger of his heart, tears came into his eyes, and Marduk-Ra agreed to exit the pyramid and to stand trial. The trial was held near the pyramid at a temple located by the Nile River. Now, if you've studied ancient Egypt at all, you've heard the stories of how originally the pyramids were thought to be tombs for the pharaohs. That notion has, of course, long since been debunked, since no pharaoh's remains have ever been found inside them. But did you know that one of the great Anunnaki gods was almost entombed inside the Great Pyramid while he was still alive? At the trial of Marduk-Ra, one nagging question needed to be resolved. Yes, Marduk was responsible for Dumuzi's death, but was it accidental or premeditated? If the crime was not deliberate, then what? And suddenly, Inanna Ishtar had the perfect solution, and her perfect revenge on Marduk. She addressed the assembly and suggested that there was a way to sentence Marduk to death without actually executing him. She screamed, "Let him be buried alive within the Great Pyramid." And that's exactly what they did. Marduk-Ra was placed inside the Great Pyramid, and the arresting gods released behind them the granite plugs of the ascending passage, blocking off all access to the rest of the pyramid. Through the channels leading from the king's chamber to the north and south faces of the pyramid, Marduk-Ra had air to breathe, but no food nor water. He was buried alive, doomed to die in agony. But oh, if it were only true, so much needless suffering and pain by so many could have been avoided if he had only been left to die there. But alas, We know that that was not to be the case. Marduk's wife Serenpit appealed to her father Sin and her brother Utu Shamash to save him. As I mentioned earlier, this is a fragmented account of those events, and some parts are missing. But somehow, Serenpit's pleas work, and the gods consented to release Marduk. But how to get him out, now that the heavy granite plugs had been released, safely sealing him inside the pyramid? Nusku, the divine messenger, then announced that the gods will bore him out. Mr. Sitchin explains in the book that the irregular twisting segment C that currently exists in the well shaft did not yet exist at this point in time. The Anunnaki gods, who had assisted in the construction of the pyramid, quickly realized that the shortest and quickest way to reach the starving Marduk was to tunnel a connecting shaft between the existing passages B and D. Tunneling a mere 32 feet through the relatively soft limestone blocks, and that's exactly what they did, which is why there is an odd-looking shaft there now amidst all the perfectly designed ones. It was drilled out in haste to save the life of this narcissistic god, a god for whom the Anunnaki, and especially the humans, would have been much better off if left there to rot. All right, one final rant before I end the show for today. I have mentioned this once before in the past, but the problem just seems to get worse and worse, so I will talk about it once again. And the issue that I am speaking of is false information regarding the Anunnaki. It is reaching epidemic proportions. It seems that everywhere I turn these days, there's some misled soul on social media spouting lies about the Anunnaki. It's especially bad on YouTube and TikTok. It's getting to the point where there is more false information being posted than true information. When you see these videos, I recommend asking the creator to reveal the source of his or her information. It's no secret that all of my information comes from the ancient texts of Sumeria, Babylon, and Kemet, Egypt. I am very open about that fact. These are the oldest writings on the planet, and I believe them to be factual. But where are these other people getting their information? For example, there is zero evidence of any type of galactic federation. This is not Star Trek. What is this federation? Where is your proof? If such a federation existed, I would have to believe that the Anunnaki would have mentioned it in the ancient texts. They did not. Then there are creators utilizing AI to supply the visual for their videos. They get most of the Anunnaki story correct, although not all of it, but the problem with this is that they rarely depict them the way they actually looked. I've said this before. One of them could walk down the street in any city in the world and you wouldn't be able to tell. Just look at some of these images. What the hell is that? You could poke an eye out getting close to that guy. These guys look like members of Galactic Devo. This looks like Kermit the Frog meets Frankenstein. This guy looks like Jar Jar Binks. And what the hell is this? A Vulcan from Avatar? Come on, people. The Anunnaki are not reptilians, insectoids, or even big blue meanies. They basically look like us. They look like this. And they are not giants. After all, they had sex with humans. Remember me talking about that? If they are 12 feet tall, how in the hell would you have sex with humans? The parts wouldn't fit together right. But why is all of this so important? I'll tell you why. Because the majority of the people on this planet have no idea what is really going on concerning the Anunnaki. Many have not even heard of them. And many of the people who have heard of them are so damn confused by all the misinformation being circulated that they are ready to give up on this topic completely. We need to attract more people to this truth. we need to educate way more than we need to entertain. We should not be trying to confuse people or scare them away. This is far too important to be putting out misinformation. I just saw a video from a guy who claims to be channeling Enki. Come on, really? Gang, these creators need to do better. And I'm asking all of you to get involved as well. You can help stop this. From now on, whenever you see a video about the Anunnaki or aliens in general, especially if it looks or sounds like something out of Star Trek or Star Wars, send the creator a message asking for where they are getting their information. I'm honest about it, so if I'm honest about it, then they should be honest about it too. Make them tell you where they are getting their information. And if they can't or won't do that, then they are probably frauds. I wouldn't waste any more time watching their videos. It's really as simple as that. If they don't care enough about this topic, and all of you as viewers of their videos, then why should you be wasting your time watching them? Stick to the facts, insist on the truth, and let's learn about these beings together, what really happened and what is still going on. And that is where I will leave you for this episode. You have quite a lot to digest there, and we have so much more to cover and learn. I'm Mad Mark, and I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If so, please like, share, and comment. It helps so much. And also, tell your friends and help spread the word about this show. Also, if you have any questions regarding the content discussed on this program, just message me through madmarktv.com or on any of my social media platforms. I also wish to remind everyone that listening to this podcast is no excuse to not read the book that we are discussing here, The Wars of Gods and Men by Zecharia Sitchin. It is an amazing work, and I'm leaving out much information in order to keep the show flowing properly, so do yourselves a favor and read that book. Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth is written and produced by me, Mad Mark. All media used in this episode is done so under the protection of fair use for the purpose of teaching. Today we have taken yet another step in our ongoing journey to find the truth. I promise you that things will get more and more interesting the further we delve into this topic of who are the aliens, the history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. Bye for now. This has been Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth with your host, Mad Mark. Join us again on our next program when Mad Mark will once again uncover the answers to more of the mysteries that puzzle mankind.